Okay, so this is factoring trinomials, part 2, video 2. Again, if you feel like this guy right here, you're unsure exactly what you're doing, we're going to be working on these two things here. What happens if the leading coefficient's negative? That whole x factor, no AC in the basement thing doesn't work out. Okay, and then also what happens when trinomials have a common monomial factor that you can divide out. Okay, so by the end of this guy is going to feel a little bit more like this guy here. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples here. Feel free to pause this and try them out on your own and then see if you come up with the same solutions. All right, so this first one here, what happens if my leading coefficient is a negative? So if it starts off with a negative, the little trick I showed you won't work out so great. So what you want to do is to divide out a negative. So if I divide out a -1, let's say, if I divide that out, I'm really just asking for the opposites of everything. So I get x squared minus x minus 20. Okay, so now I treat this as my other problem. So a is 1, b is -1, and c is -20. All right, so no AC, so it's -20 in the basement. Okay, so two numbers that multiply each other give you -20. So negative tells me that one of them is negative and one of them is positive. And it tells me the larger one is going to be negative because I'm left over with a -1. So let me just quickly think of my factors of 20. That's 10 times 2, and that's 5 times 2. So I have these numbers to deal with. So I'm going to go with -5 and +4. Multiply gives you that. 2 times 2 is 4. The other one's 5. So next, I divide by my leading coefficient. In this particular example, it's going to be a 1, right? So I divide by 1, divide by 1. That doesn't change, nor does the other one. So my answer here is going to be, I'm going to write 1x minus 5. This one's going to be 1x plus 4. But I cannot forget about that 1 that I pulled out, that -1. So I'm going to put out that negative right up front. And so there's my factored form of that trinomial. If for whatever reason they say this is equal to 0, then you're going to have to come up with the two solutions, right? So the opposite of +5 and -4. But we're not worried about that right now, okay? So that's that first one. Let's take a look at another one, another example here. Scooter this on up. All right, so if I'm looking at this problem here, example number 2, I'm going to try that again. So it starts off with a negative, so that's a problem. So I want to divide out a negative. There's nothing else they have in common, so divide out a -1. Okay, so if I divide out a -1, it leaves me with +6k squared, +13k, and +6. Okay, so now I start off with a is 6, b is 13, c is 6. No AC in the basement. Okay, so 36, well, that's broken up to 6 times 6, which is broken up to 2 times 3, 2 times 3. This is what I have to deal with right here. So I can think of, start writing down the factors. Let's see, 36 is made up of 2 times, if I plug up that 2, that's 2 times 3 is 6, times 3 is 18. So 2 times 18, that's not going to get me there. Let me try a 3. If I use one of the 3's, I'm left with 2 times 2, which is 4, times 3 is 12. Times 12, that's not going to get me anywhere. And then by the way, I'm thinking positive, same sign, positive, both positive. So I'm going to add up these numbers. Okay, so let me try using, how about 2 times 2, which is 4. If I plug up my 2's, I'm left with 9 over there. There we go. Add these together, I get 13. So I'm going to go 4 and 9. Now I divide by my leading coefficient, which is 6, and then reduce when possible. This reduces to 2/3, positive 2/3. Over here, this reduces to positive 3/2. Okay, and so given that information, I can get my binomials going 3k plus 2. This one's going to be 2k plus 3. And remember, I had that -1 that I divided out, so I can't forget him. I put a -1 out front, and this would be my final answer. Okay. All right. Look for part 3 for. Well, I'll just go and do it right now. So, well, no, I don't want to make the video too long. So hopefully, you felt maybe like this before, and now you feel a little bit more like this guy right here. Okay. Look for part 3, and I'll show you how to factor out common monomials factors.